Welcome again. Our next speaker is Kourken Michaelian from Université Grenoble, Alpes. And as you remember, I said the bios of our speakers are already in our handouts with the program, so you can find it there. So,
okay, thanks very much. Is the sound okay?
Yes.
I have way too many slides, so I'm putting on time. All right, so the title of the talk is Imagining the Past Reliably and Unreliably. What's next for the simulation theory of episodic memory? Here's an outline of the talk. I'll begin by talking about remembering as a form of reliable imagining. I'll then talk about confabulation as a form of unreliable remembering. And then finally, in the last section of the talk, I'll consider the possibility that it's time for us in philosophy of memory to move beyond reliability. So to begin with, remembering as reliable. Some context. Here's a kind of generic statement of the causal theory of memory. According to the causal theory, a subject S now remembers an event E, just in case. This is the previous experience condition. S experienced E when it occurred. Second, this is the current representation condition. S now represents E. And finally, this is the appropriate causation condition. S's current representation of E is appropriately causally connected to S's previous experience of E, where an appropriate causal connection is one that is sustained by a memory trace originating in S's experience of E. Now, the causal theory continues to occupy a dominant position, at least a very strong position, in the philosophy of memory, but it has been challenged in various ways. There are some older challenges based on the epistemic theory of memory, a theory according to which remembering is the retention of knowledge or justification. So I'm not going to get into this here. I'm going to set those challenges aside, but I will eventually come back to these. There are also some more recent challenges that focus on views standardly associated with the causal theory. There are challenges to preservationism. There are challenges to transmissionism. I don't really have time to go into those, so I won't. What matters is simply that these challenges, while important, don't get at what's really distinctive about the causal theory, namely its appeal to appropriate causation. So I'm just going to set those challenges aside. Now, the claim that appropriate causation is necessary, and together with previous experience and current representation, sufficient for remembering, has also been challenged. So the joint sufficiency of these conditions is challenged by some recent hybrid causal theories. I'm not going to go into those here. But both the sufficiency and the necessity of appropriate causation have been challenged by new empirically inspired post-causal theories, and that is what I want to talk about. So the basic argument for the causal theory, which I haven't rehearsed, rests entirely on our intuitions about hypothetical cases. So there are obvious methodological problems with this, but despite these, causal theorists have yet to really move beyond the basic argument. So here's the basic dialectic of the debate between causalists and post-causalists, at least so far. Causal theorists argue on the basis of intuition that appropriate causation is necessary for remembering. Post-causal theorists then argue on the basis of empirical evidence that appropriate causation is not necessary for remembering. Causal theorists then cast about for empirical evidence that remembering might involve appropriate causation after all. But so far, they haven't provided a convincing empirical basis for thinking that the appropriate causation condition is satisfied in each and every case of remembering, which is what they were looking to do. So that sounds uncharitable, but I'll come back to this. So this is what things look like now. Notwithstanding the lack of a solid empirical basis for the causal theory and various variants thereof. So there are neoclassical and constructive and hybrid and various different versions of the causal theory on offer. Some version of the causal theory remains influential, or I would say dominant. So the figure is from a paper. I won't go through it in detail, but I can point you to the paper if you're interested. What matters is that, well, some of these theories give up the claim that appropriate causation, along with previous experience and current representation, is sufficient for remembering. They all accept that appropriate causation is necessary for remembering. And this is precisely what's denied by post-causal theories. And I'm thinking here in particular of the functionalist theory proposed by Jordi Fernandez in a book that came out just this year, and of the simulation theory that I proposed in my book a few years ago. So I'm going to focus on the simulation theory. Here's the basic strategy of the argument for this. First, you build on psychological research on the constructive character of memory to argue that appropriate causation is not sufficient for memory. Second, you build on psychological research on mental time travel to argue that appropriate causation is not necessary for memory. So let me look at each of these arguments in turn, simplified versions of them. So first, the anti-sufficiency argument. The idea here is that research on the constructive character of memory shows that retrieving a memory of an event is not a matter of literally retrieving a stored representation deriving from one's experience of that event. Instead, it's a matter of generating a new representation on the basis of stored representations originating in one's experiences of multiple events. Now, what this implies, again, I'm simplifying a little bit, what this implies is that a given retrieved representation will typically be appropriately causally connected to multiple past events, and that implies, in turn, that appropriate causation is insufficient for remembering. The anti-necessity argument is the more controversial of these two arguments. The idea here is that research on mental time travel shows that memory is one form of mental time travel among others. That is, that the same systems and processes are involved both in generating representations of experienced past events and in generating representations of possible future events and counterfactual events. Now, a trace originating in one's experience of the represented event obviously, trivially, can't be involved in the generation of episodic future or counterfactual thought. In other words, appropriate causation can't be required for successful episodic future or counterfactual thought. And what this suggests, although it doesn't entail it, is that appropriate causation is likewise not required for successful episodic memory. So, not everyone will be convinced, but suppose that that's right. Suppose that appropriate causation doesn't differentiate remembering the past from merely imagining. In that case, what does? So here's the simulationist proposal. According to the simulation theory of memory, S now remembers E, just in case. S now represents E, and S's current representation of E is produced by a reliable episodic construction system. You have the choice. You can include the previous experience condition, or you can drop it. You're going to end up with different versions of the theory depending on what you do. Here it's not going to play any role, so I'm just going to drop it. So if you want a slogan to sum up the simulation theory, you can say that to remember is to imagine the past. If you want a slightly less misleading slogan, you can say that to remember is to reliably imagine the past. Now, the simulation theory, like the causal theory, has been challenged in various ways. There are a bunch of challenges based on apparent discontinuities between episodic memory and episodic future and counterfactual thought. People have pointed to apparent empirical discontinuities, metaphysical discontinuities, epistemological discontinuities. None of this is going to play a role in the argument that I want to give today, so I'm going to skip over these. I've discussed them at length in published work. There are also challenges based on the role of reliability in theory. So, for example, how can the concept of reliability be applied to future or counterfactual thought? I think that Nazim is going to talk about this in his commentary, so I'm going to skip over. In addition to these other challenges, there's a challenge based on a challenge that pertains to memory errors, such as confabulation. So the basic worry, and this comes originally from Sarah Robbins, the basic worry is that because the simulation theory treats remembering as a form of imagining, it may be unable to distinguish between successful remembering and forms of unsuccessful remembering, such as confabulation. So that's what I want to talk about in the next section of the talk, confabulation and related memory errors. So here are a couple of older accounts of the nature of confabulation. According to the false belief account, confabulating is distinguished from remembering by the falsity, in the case of confabulating, of the apparent memories in which the process results. According to the epistemic account, which is linked to the epistemic theory of memory, confabulating is distinguished from remembering by the unjustifiedness, in the case of confabulating, of the apparent memories in which the process results. So I'm not going to talk about either of these accounts in detail. The false belief account rules out the possibility of veridical confabulation. Veridical confabulation is clearly possible, even if it's unlikely. So for that reason, I want to set it aside. The epistemic account also faces a number of problems. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, but it will end up being done. So the current debate within the philosophy of memory is essentially between accounts based on the causal theory and accounts based on the simulation. So according to the causalist account, confabulating is distinguished from remembering by the absence, in the case of confabulating, of an appropriate causal connection between the apparent memories in which the process results and the corresponding earlier experiences. According to the simulationist account, confabulating is distinguished from remembering by the unreliability, in the case of confabulating, of the process that produces the apparent memories. So, just in case anybody is interested in the details, here's what the debate looks like so far. This is essentially triggered by work by Sarah Robbins. So she proposed an initial causalist classification of memory errors. I then replied, criticizing the causalist classification and defending the simulationist classification. Sven Bernecker then intervened, criticizing the simulationist classification and proposing a new causalist classification. And then most recently, I replied, defending the simulationist approach against Bernecker. Sarah Robbins also has a recent paper in which she defends a kind of conciliatory position. I don't think that this is really relevant here. It doesn't get at it doesn't have to do directly with the disagreement, with the basic disagreement between the two kinds of position. So I'm not going to go over it. So here's the causalist classification that Sarah proposed. The classification is based on two conditions, accuracy and retention. So the accuracy condition says that the subject forms an accurate representation of the past event. whereas the retention condition, which is really just an appropriate causation condition, says that the subject representation is based on retained information originating in his experience. So the idea is that in remembering, down on the left, both conditions are satisfied. In confabulating, all the way over on the right, neither condition is satisfied. If you have retention, but not accuracy, you have what she refers to as misremembering. If you don't have retention and you don't have accuracy, you have what she refers to as relearning. So the idea is that relearning occurs when the subject acquires information, forgets it, and then re-acquires it. It isn't clear whether relearning should be counted as a memory error, and I'll come back to that point in just a minute. Misremembering, as Robbins uses the term, is typified by the DRM effect, which occurs when the subject is presented with a list of words on a given theme, and later recalls having seen a thematically related but non-presented lure word. So I give you hospital, medicine, sick, etc. Later on, you falsely remember doctor. Now, misremembering, although it's distinct from confabulation, clearly should be counted as a memory error. What to make of this? Well, the causalist classification correctly acknowledges misremembering, but it fails to acknowledge both veridical confabulation and falsidical relearning. So veridical confabulation, confabulation in which the subject happens to produce an accurate representation, would need to be characterized like relearning as involving accuracy but not causal connection. And falsidical relearning, relearn true information, you can relearn false information. Falsidical relearning would have to be characterized like confabulation as involving neither accuracy nor causal connection. So the problem is that she doesn't have enough conditions to enable her to account for all of the errors for which she needs to account. So what we need is an account that can acknowledge a condition, veridical confabulation, and falsidical relearning. Now, roughly speaking, the role played by the retention with the appropriate causation condition in the causal theory is played by the reliability condition in the simulation. What this suggests, putting together with the previous point, is an initial simulations classification, which is designed to capture misremembering and veridical confabulation. So the basic idea is that if you have reliability, then you're either remembering or misremembering, depending on whether or not you have accuracy. If you don't have reliability, then you're confabulating, either veridically or falsidically, again, depending on whether you have accuracy. Now, it's immediately obvious that relearning, both veridical and falsidical, has simply dropped out of the picture. Now, in order to accommodate relearning, we might, and this is what I initially suggested, we might add a condition to the classification. We add an internality condition, which requires that the subject be contributing the content, so you can't just be picking it up again from an external source. This would give you the revised simulationist classification that you have on the slide. If the internality condition is satisfied, then everything works the way it did before. If the internality condition is not satisfied, then you're either veridically or falsidically relearning, depending on the other details. So, this is a way of getting relearning back into the, in what way of taking relearning into account. However, it isn't clear, as I hinted before, that we actually want to do this. So here's Bernecker objecting that relearning is not necessarily an error. He says, relearning is clearly different from remembering, but this doesn't mean that relearning is a memory error. Relearning is typically preceded by forgetting, which may or may not be regarded as a memory error. Relearning is sometimes accompanied by a source monitoring error, which is a type of memory error, where the source of the memory is incorrect correctly attributed to some specific recollected experience. What to think about this? He might be right, in part. So although Bernecker isn't very explicit on this point, his approach suggests a new causalist classification that parallels the initial simulations classification. So the errors you have and the way they're arranged is exactly like it was before, like they were before. The difference is simply that you've replaced reliability with intention. So if we grant with Bernecker that relearning is not necessarily an error, then at this stage we might either revert to the initial simulations classification or develop an improved simulations classification. And I think it's the latter option that we should go for. So forgetting, I think Bernecker is right, is not always an error. When it is, it's an error of a different sort, a matter of a failure to retrieve rather than an erroneous retrieval. So I'm going to set forgetting aside for now. What about source monitoring error? If the subject commits a second-order error with respect to the source of first-order remembered information, then, okay, he might be right. Relearning arguably then does amount to an error. However, again, it's an error of a different sort. Confabulation, which is the kind of error in which we're interested in this debate, doesn't necessarily involve a failure to determine the source of remembered information. And for that reason, I want to set source monitoring aside as well. However, a different kind of metacognitive failure, something in the general neighborhood of source monitoring error, does play a role in at least many cases of confabulation. And this, I think, we need to take into account. So, what I mean to say, in general terms, is that typical cases of confabulation have two characteristic dimensions. So you can see this so this the quote comes from Schneider, a very interesting book, now in its second edition. He says that confabulators characteristically fail to suppress, or rather filter, activated memory traces and mental associations which do not refer to current reality. So the idea, in general, is the following. Typical cases of confabulation have these two dimensions. First, the production of mostly inaccurate representations by, for example, the filling in of gaps in memory through the combination of bits and pieces of memories of different events, or the displacement of events in time. Second dimension, a failure on the part of the subject to recognize, even in cases in which the resulting representations are highly implausible or incongruous with reality, that something has gone wrong with the retrieval process, and hence a failure to reject the representations in question. So we need to take both of these things into account, both of these dimensions into account. The thing is that the causalist and simulationist accounts that we've considered so far focus only on the first dimension. If we decide to take the second dimension into account, then from a simulationist perspective, confabulation would seem to involve both object-level reliability, which in most cases would result in the production of an inaccurate representation, and meta-level unreliability, which would result in most cases in a failure to detect object-level unreliability. Now, there are 2 points. This sounds like there's a lot of text on the slide, but this is fairly important. 2 points that should be taken into account about meta-level unreliability. So first, we need to distinguish between meta-level reliability and meta-level accuracy. Just as reliability and accuracy can come apart at the object level, resulting in either an unluckily inaccurate apparent memory, in the case of misremembering, or a luckily accurate apparent memory, in the case of vertical confabulation, reliability and luck can come apart at the meta level as well, resulting in either an unluckily inaccurate metacognitive judgment or a luckily accurate metacognitive judgment. So the point about luck in misremembering and vertical confabulation should be fairly intuitive. The point about meta-level luck is less so, but we'll talk about this. Second point, metacognitive monitoring processes can't directly detect the accuracy of a retrieved apparent memory, but they can detect features of the retrieval process, such as fluency, that are correlated with its reliability, and hence with the probable accuracy of the apparent memories that it produces. What this means is that the accuracy of metacognitive judgments should be understood as accuracy with respect to the reliability of the relevant retrieval processes, rather than reliability with respect to accuracy. Again, a lot of text, and that's somewhat abstract, but you'll get the point. Now, this is, I've shown, given similar talks a couple of times, and this is the point at which usually people groan, because they see that there's too much on the table, and it's already pre-focused in the way that I talk. Is he really going to go through all of this? When I first drew the table, I had the same reaction. I thought, you know, what to do with this? It's a mess. The problem is that when you take both object level and meta level reliability and accuracy into account, this is what you end up. There's no way around it. You have all of these possibilities. So what to do? Well, from a methodological point of view, usually I just stare at something and kind of curse if necessary until it starts making sense. And so that's what I did. I stared at the table and I cursed for a while, and eventually I realized that the relationships among these various errors become much easier to see when the errors are arranged by the kind of subject with which they're associated and by the kinds of luck that they involve, if any. When you do that, you end up with this. And although I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, it does, I hope it will be apparent that it makes more intuitive sense. So if you look at the upper left quadrant, you'll see that we have the errors that I've been focusing on so far. Well, so we have remembering, plus we have misremembering, and then falsitical and veridical confabulation. In the case of remembering, there's no luck involved. Why? Because a reliable process produces an accurate representation. In the case of falsitical confabulation, there's no luck involved. Why? Because an unreliable process produces an inaccurate representation. Now, misremembering and veridical confabulation do involve luck, object level luck. Why? Because in the case of misremembering, reliable process produces an inaccurate representation. So nothing is, there's a sense in which nothing goes wrong when you misremember. Your memory system is operating the way it should. It just happens to get things wrong in that particular case. In veridical confabulation, you have object level luck because you have an unreliable process confabulating, which just happens to produce an accurate representation. So all of that is fairly straightforward. You're going to see remembering and misremembering in subjects whose memory systems or these episodic construction systems don't malfunction. You're going to see falsitical and veridical confabulation in what we might call full confabulators, where you have object level and meta level malfunction. What about meta level luck and object level and meta level luck? Maybe let's just look at the first column. So suppose that at the object level, everything goes the way that it should. Your episodic construction system functions reliably, and it outputs an accurate representation. So no object level luck, but suppose that something goes wrong at the meta level. The relevant metacognitive monitoring mechanism mistakenly judges that the object level process is unreliable, so you end up rejecting the first order representation. You might call that innocently rejected remembering. Why innocent? Because there's nothing actually going wrong at there's a sense in which nothing actually goes wrong at the meta level. The system is operating the way it should. It just happens to produce an inaccurate output in this case. And then the final possibility would be innocently rejected misremembering, which would be just like innocently rejected remembering, except at the object level, you have misremembering remembering. So this would be a case where you have object level luck, which is sort of cancelled out by meta level luck. At the object level, a reliable process happens to produce an inaccurate representation. Then the same thing happens at the meta level, but because of that, you end up not forming an inaccurate memory. So obviously it will take a while to work through the rest of it, but it makes some sense. Now, the initial simulationist classification acknowledges errors that don't involve luck and errors that involve object level luck. The improved simulationist classification that I've just presented additionally acknowledges errors that involve meta level luck and errors that involve both object level and meta level luck. The thing is that the simulation theory itself doesn't take luck into account, and this suggests that the simulation theory may need to be modified. And what I want to do in the 10 minutes that I have left is to talk about how we might modify it in light of the way the confabulation debate is done. So here's another objection from Berneker. Sven and I collaborate, but we don't agree about much of anything. So he argues that the simulationist account, which distinguishes between remembering and confabulating, in terms of the unreliability of the system, is an epistemic account. And this implies that the simulation theory itself is an epistemic theory. So what is he thinking about? Roughly, his background is in epistemology. He's thinking, and rightly so, that I'm taking the concept of reliability from reliabilist epistemology, and so maybe that makes the simulation theory a kind of epistemic theory, a reliabilist theory. In reply, I say that the simulation theory is not, in fact, an epistemic theory. It's useful here to compare the simulationist account of confabulation to Herstein's account. So Herstein treats confabulating as ill-grounded remembering, thereby making use of normative or evaluative epistemic concepts. The simulationist account, in contrast, doesn't employ such concepts. So it makes use of the notion of reliability, but reliability is not an inherently normative, evaluative, or epistemic notion. Lots of things can be reliable, and reliability may or may not be of comparison. So I would say that the simulationist account is a reliability account, but not a reliabilist account. Despite this, so his objection suggests a potentially useful thought. If we treat theories of remembering as being analogous to theories of knowledge, then we might reason in the following way. So here's a little sketch of the development of externalist theories of knowledge. You begin with the causal theory, that's Alvin Goldman, then you move to process reliabilism, again that's Goldman, then you move to virtue reliabilism. That's Sousa and various other people. So what about the development of theories of memory? Well, we began with the causal theory, we then moved to a process reliability theory, that's simulationism. What about moving potentially to a virtue reliability theory? So how would this work? Looking first at the object level. So according to the simulation theory, remembering occurs when the accuracy condition and the reliability condition are both satisfied. The new simulationist account of confabulation treats this as ruling on the presence of luck, but that might be too quick. It might be too soon. So consider Sousa's archer metaphor. Suppose that an archer shoots with skill. Suppose that the arrow hits the target. The hitting of the target may still be due to luck. There might be, for example, a gust of wind that blows the arrow off course, and another gust of wind that blows it back to course. Various things like that are possible. So we can say that luck is ruled out only if the target is hit because the archer shoots with skill. So it's not enough that the arrow is shot with skill. It's not enough that the arrow hits the target. The arrow needs to hit the target because it was shot with skill. So the idea then is going to be that luck can be ruled out in the case of apparent remembering only if the accuracy condition is satisfied because the reliability condition is satisfied. Now, Souza uses this fact about luck to motivate a virtue reliabilist theory of knowledge, a theory on which knowledge is a kind of achievement. And we might similarly use it to motivate a virtue reliability theory of memory, a theory on which memory is an achievement. Souza treats achievements as apt performances, where aptness is accuracy due to adroitness. A shot is apt, he says, if the arrow hits the target, that's accuracy because the archer shoots with skill, that's adroitness. A belief then is going to be apt if it's true, accuracy, because the relevant belief forming capacity functions reliably, adroitness. In the case of memory, what would this look like? An apparent memory is going to be apt if it's accurate with respect to the relevant event, so that's the accuracy condition. Because the memory system functions reliably, that's the adroitness condition. Now, because Souza's framework applies some performance with an aim, a virtue reliability theory doesn't need to be a virtue reliabilist theory. So this is me sort of anticipating objections in the objection from Grenoble that we saw earlier. I think in the interest of time, I'll skip over this. The point is simply that we can use Souza's framework without thereby committing ourselves to an epistemic theory. This I can skip. This I can skip as well. So here's an initial formulation of a virtue reliability theory of remembering. It takes only the object level into account. S now remembers E just in case. So you have the current representation condition. As before, you have the reliability condition. As its representation of E is produced by a reliable episodic instruction system. You have a virtue condition. As its representation of E is accurate because it's produced by a reliable episodic construction system. So I want to point out that this is still a simulation theory. We still don't require appropriate causation. And remembering is still treated as a kind of imagining. So in principle, we should be able to extend this analysis of successful remembering to successful future and counterfactual thinking. If we revise the theory to take the meta level into account, you end up with this, the same conditions as before. Then a condition that says that the subject accurately judges that his system functioned reliably when it produced his representation E. Then you have a condition that says that his judgment of his episodic construction system functions reliably when it produced his representation is itself produced by a reliable metacognitive monitoring process. And then a virtue condition, which connects accuracy with reliability at the mental level. Now, I said that I would talk about moving beyond reliability, and so I'll do that in the remaining 2 minutes. I claimed earlier that causal theorists have yet to provide convincing empirical reason to suppose that the appropriate causation condition is satisfied in every case of remembering. The thing is that simulation theorists may be in the same, or this is similar boat. It isn't clear that we can actually provide convincing empirical reason to suppose that the object level and meta level reliability conditions are satisfied in every case of remembering. So, to make a long story short, it may be time to move beyond reliability, to give up the notion of reliability. And the way I'm considering doing so, I haven't made up my mind about this yet, is by building on an idea from John Turi, who's argued that epistemologists should move from reliabilism to ableism. So the idea is knowledge is a kind of achievement. Achievements, he points out, don't in general require reliable abilities. So consider a skilled archer shooting at a target that's really far away. He might hit it. That might be an achievement, but he might not be able to do it reliably. It's too far away. So the upshot is supposed to be that if we think of knowledge as being an achievement, we should grant that unreliable knowledge is possible. And we might do something similar in the case of memory. So we might, in the case of knowledge, move from virtue reliabilism to virtue ableism. In the case of memory, we could move from a virtue reliability theory to a virtue ability theory. So the basic idea would be the basic idea of a virtue ability theory of memory would be that memory is apt, apparent memory, where aptness is understood as before, and accuracy because of adroitness, but where adroitness is now understood in terms of ability rather than reliability. And again, given what I said before, accuracy because adroitness would need to obtain at both the object level and the meta level. If you give me all of that, and what you end up with is this. This looks just like the previous version of the virtue reliability theory of memory, the previous version of the simulation theory. Now you've turned the virtue reliability theory into a virtue ability theory, and this just involves swapping in the notion of ability everywhere the notion of reliability appeared before. Is it a good theory? I don't know, and I'm out of time, so I can't figure it out now. Maybe during the Q&A.
Nazım Kevan from Weekend Philosophy is our commentator.
All right, so thanks for the very interesting talk. So let's start from the beginning, actually. So the causal theory, it has been an influential theory in philosophy. I don't think it has been that influential in neuroscience or psychology and empirical sciences. I don't know if any scientist buys this kind of theory right now. But the idea is basically when you go through an experience, that experience leaves a trace called memory trace, and then you recall that experience in the future, you consult this memory trace. And this memory trace kind of acts as a causal connection to your past experiences. This view is actually now challenged, that has been at least since 60s and 70s at least, a reconstructive turn in memory, and now most people don't think memory in terms of those kind of archival terms, but rather when you remember something, it's like, putting together bits and pieces from many different experiences to kind of reconstruct your past experience. And the guiding metaphor at this influential group of researchers is mental time travel. Basically, remembering is mentally traveling into the past. And one good thing about this theory, this can extend to some other closely related coding capacities as well, and this is generally extended. So mental time travel is like it doesn't just give you an ability to travel to the past, but you can also travel to the future, and also counterfactual cases, and this is generally called prospection. And there is some evidence that it is also related to the theory of mind capacities. This same episodic construction system kind of gives us the ability to imagine other people's perspectives. And some people even claim that it might be involved in spatial navigation. So all of these can be grouped under a simulation theory of one, or these close related series of systems are underlying all of these processes. Now the debate that Kourken focused on in his talk is about this causal theory and the simulations alternative. And as he explained, the causal theory, I think, empirically it's suspect a little bit, but then philosophically, it can deal with counterexamples really well, and I think that's one main reason why it still survives in philosophy. According to causal theory, when you remember, your remembering is definitely cache that in terms of your causal connection that is created by the memory traces, whereas in the simulation theories, because you don't have these kind of memory traces running from your original experience to the current time, you need to find a different way, and Kourken's alternative is reliability. Is this notion of reliability when you remember you are using a properly functioning, that is reliable periodic construction system, and that gives access to your past. And most of my comments are going to be focused on this critical notion of reliability. And I'm not trying to challenge the view. I actually am quite sympathetic to this view. I just want to hear a little bit more about this notion and how it plays out. And the first thing is it's actually interesting to talk about reliability when it comes to memory, because if we know the reason why people moved away from these archivalist conceptions to more constructive, reconstructive weaves is that it turns out that memory is not that reliable, actually. And there are some people who say just, flat out, memory is inaccurate. I'm not going to go that radical, but at least, that's an option. And, there has been a lot of errors and biases that has been documented empirically. This is just a, I think, a way of saying that Schachter's famous book, 17th of memory. But we have many errors like memory, routinely has errors like this. And again, I want to underline that these are not clinical cases. These are, just normal, healthy individuals tend to have these kind of errors or biases in their recollection. So, when we think about our memories, we like to think it like this. So, we are aiming our past, we are trying to recollect our past experiences, and we are hitting the bullseye every time. Like we have these accurate and precise memories. In fact, what is actually happening is, when you remember, you are getting in the ballpark of the experience, and you might get some of the details right, but some of the details are going to be wrong. So then the question is how the simulationists define this notion of reliability so that it doesn't exclude these ordinary cases of remembering, which are going to be inaccurate. There's going to be a lot of inaccuracies at least. So how do we account? What kind of reliability? But also, the simulations needs to keep the confabulation cases at bay as well. So finding a middle line where you can, say, normal case of remembering is reliable, but still confabulation cases are unreliable. So that's one side of reliability. The other side is, in the confabulation case, simulation I think is a very intuitive and plausible idea. When you confabulate, your process is functioning unreliably. That's kind of plausible to me as well. But in confabulation, I think the accuracy conditions are a little bit clear. It's too clear actually, whether what you are remembering is true or false is very clear cut. So I think it will be more interesting if you can look at other cases, as I said, like causal related cases, like prospection and theory of mind, and explain how can we judge whether the system is functioning properly or reliably when we do these other things like theory of mind, prospection, imagination, that kind of stuff. Most people focus on prospection because they are both on a temporal spectrum, I guess. But I want to talk a little bit about theory of mind kind of cases to pump the intuitions a little bit, and then I'll come back to the future case. So the question is again for the simulation theorists is like how we can assess reliability when accuracy conditions are not as clear cut. In this case, she is wrong, but I think the prediction is pretty good, and it would be right in many cases, but it turns out that it doesn't work this way. And obviously, one false prediction doesn't make a system unreliable, but again, there's still the question of where are we going to draw the line, and I think even a long series of false interpretations may not mean that the system is unreliable. Here, I couldn't come up with a real example, but one fictional example is being there. If you've seen the movie, I don't know, it's a great one. But what happens is that a naive gardener is mistaken for a wise political advisor, and whatever, all these, simple things that he says about gardening is treated as if he's revealing some deep truths about politics and economy and all that stuff. And, he ends up being a candidate for presidency, and I don't know. But there, it seems like there's all these misinterpretations going on, but the people who are misinterpreting him are actually working in a reliable system. Their theory of minds are pretty good because some advisors, some wise people tend to speak in these weird ways, right? So I don't know if we should say his or their systems are functioning unreliably. Then coming back to the future, projection of the future, I look at back to the future kind of cases, and this is actually, again, this is not an ordinary case. Obviously, they thought about their prediction, so they put a lot of effort, time, and effort, but it turns out that future prediction is a difficult thing, and they are, by today's standards, they have been all over the place. So these were all the predictions for 2015. They got some of these things right, some of these things wrong. What do we say? Were they, how was their system? Was it a reliable prediction system, or were they unreliable? I again tend to think that they were pretty good. You can think about other cases like George Orwell's 1984. He was wrong about 1984, but I think it was, pretty good. Like, the book is good. So again, these are cases just to enforce this idea of like how to really cash out the notion of reliability, so that we can apply it for ordinary cases of the memory, but also for other cases of like prediction and or theory of mind, or maybe even navigation. Where, especially where in cases, these accuracy conditions are not as clear cut. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Kourken, would you like to respond to Nazem, or we can?
Yeah, I'll respond briefly. So first, so two things. So first, I think you're right to pick on the notion of reliability and to raise the question of what that notion might mean when it's applied to episodic future thought, for example, to other forms of episodic thinking, or to the various capacities that have been associated with episodic memory. How should it be applied? It's actually, I'm not entirely sure. But I'm thinking maybe I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle. So sometimes people have asked me, what would it be to be reliable with respect to the future? An episodic future thought process to be reliable with respect to the future. And it isn't clear because reliability is defined in terms of accuracy and tendency to produce accurate representations. If determinism is false, what is accuracy with respect to the future? Anyway, so you're quickly sort of stray into metaphysical territory. If you take something like episodic actual thought into account, you will again stray into metaphysical territory. And well, I'm pretty sure we've got a pretty good intuitive grasp of what it is for future-oriented thought to be reliable. After all, we look at other formats every day, it seems like reliability is too severe. In the case of episodic counterfactual thought, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm thinking, well, I think of something like Berman's book, The Rational Imagination. I think maybe if you want resources like that, you could work out accounts of reliability that applies to episodic counterfactual thinking, but I certainly haven't done it yet. So if you like something like simulation theory, this is something I would eventually do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is about, well, maybe this would be, he appealed to Chapter of the Sufficiency sort of thing. So, I mean, there's a problematic inference which is sometimes made. You see this more in psychology than in philosophy. People point to the fact that memory is prone to various kinds of errors, Chapter 7 sins, and so on, and then they draw the conclusion that therefore memory is unreliable. Of course, it doesn't follow the fact that we sometimes make errors, doesn't imply that remembering is unreliable. So is remembering reliable, despite the fact that we sometimes make errors? It's a difficult question to answer, and I'm not sure in practice how one would actually go. So this might be another reason in favor of the new simulation theory, the virtue theory of memory, because it allows you to, well, virtuability theory in particular, because it allows you to decide something. So the virtuability theory of remembering is compatible with the possibility of reliable, but doesn't presuppose it. And so if you look at that theory, you're not going to the same obligation to say something on the actual level of responsibility of memory. So again, that might be an efficient reason here. Response.